Starting at chapter 6,
Oh, okay, that's what, yeah,
and
that's cool.
and Paul has just talked about how, if I recall correctly, Paul has just talked about how Jesus became sin that
Mhm.
we might be saved from sin. And one of his more beautiful passages about, I guess it used to be called atonement, right? I guess I'd like to call it reconciliation. So he said, Jesus reconciled us. Anyway, shall we go on? I hope to do 5 chapters again, and that'll leave us with 2 chapters left. And then we could talk about what we want to do next. Okay, so chapter 6. Companions, as we are in this work with you, we beg you, please don't squander one bit of this marvelous life God has given us. God reminds us, I heard your call in the nick of time. The day you needed me, I
Larry,
was
excuse
there
me.
to help.
I'm sorry. We're at Acts chapter 6?
We're at Second
Oh
Corinthians
my
chapter
God.
6,
Oh,
right?
yeah, yeah. No wonder
Oy vey. Yeah,
it all comes back to me. I knew that from your email earlier today. Thank you.
sure.
Thank you.
You must have had a hard day. Anyway, Paul is quoting scripture. The day you needed me, I was there to help. Well, now is the right time to listen. The day to be helped. Don't put it off. Don't frustrate God's work by showing up late, throwing a question mark over everything we're doing. Our work as God's servants gets validated or not in the details. People are watching us as we stay at our post alertly, unswervingly, in hard times, tough times, bad times, when we're beaten up, jailed, and mobbed, working hard, working late, working without eating, with pure heart, clear head, steady hand, in gentleness, holiness, and honest love, when we're telling the truth, and when God's showing his power, when we're doing our best, setting things right, when we're praised and when we're blamed, slandered and honored, true to our word, though distrusted, ignored by the world, but recognized by God, terrifically alive, though rumored to be dead, beaten within an inch of our lives, but refusing to die, immersed in tears, yet always filled with deep joy, living on handouts, yet enriching many, having nothing, having it all. Dear, dear Corinthians, I can't tell you how much I long for you to enter this wide open, spacious life. We didn't fence you in. The smallness you feel comes from within you. Your lives are not small, but you're living them in a small way. I'm speaking as plainly as I can and with great affection. Open up your lives, live openly and expansively. Don't become partners with those who reject God. How can you make a partnership out of right and wrong? That's not partnership, that's war. Is light best friends with dark? Does Christ go strolling with the devil? Do trust and mistrust hold hands? Who would think of setting up pagan idols in God's holy temple? But that is exactly what we are, each of us, a temple in whom God lives. God himself put it this way: I'll live in them, move into them. I'll be their God, and they'll be my people. So leave the corruption and compromise. Leave it for good, says God. Don't link up with those who will pollute you. I want you all for myself. I'll be a father to you. You'll be sons and daughters to me. The word of the Master, God. With promises like this to pull us on, dear friends, let's make a clean break with everything that defiles or distracts us, both within and without. Let's make our entire lives fit and holy temples for the worship of God. Trust us, we've never hurt a soul, never exploited or taken advantage of anyone. Don't think I'm finding fault with you. I told you earlier that I'm with you all the way, no matter what. I have, in fact, the greatest confidence in you. If only you knew how proud I am of you. I am overwhelmed with joy despite all our troubles. When we arrived in Macedonia province, we couldn't settle down. The fights in the church and the fears in our hearts kept us on pins and needles. We couldn't relax because we didn't know how it would turn out. Then the God who lifts up the downcast lifted our heads and our hearts with the arrival of Titus. We were glad just to see him, but the true reassurance came in what he told us about you, how much you cared, how much you grieved, how concerned you were for me. I went from worry to tranquility in no time. I know I distressed you greatly with my letter. Although I felt awful at the time, I don't feel at all bad now that I see how it turned out. The letter upset you, but only for a while. No, I'm glad. Not that you were upset, but that you were jarred into turning things around. You let the distress bring you to God, not drive you from him. The result was all gain, no loss. Distress that drives us to God does that. It turns us around. It gets us back in the way of salvation. We never regret that kind of pain, but those who let distress drive them away from God are full of regrets, end up in a deathbed of regrets. And now, isn't it wonderful all the ways in which this distress has goaded you closer to God? You're more alive, more concerned, more sensitive, more reverent, more human, more passionate, more responsible. Looked at from any angle, you've come out of this with purity of heart. And that is what I was hoping for in the first place. That is what I was hoping for in the first place when I wrote the letter. My primary concern was not for the one who did the wrong, or even the one wronged, but for you, that you would realize and act upon the deep, deep ties between us before God. That's what happened. And we felt just great. And then when we saw how Titus felt, his exuberance over your response, our joy doubled. It was wonderful to see how revived and refreshed he was by everything you did. If I went out on a limb and telling Titus how great I thought you were, you didn't cut off that limb. As it turned out, I hadn't exaggerated one bit. Titus saw for himself that everything I had said about you was true. He can't quit talking about it, going over again and again the story of your prompt obedience and the dignity and sensitivity of your hospitality. He was quite overwhelmed by it all, and I couldn't be more pleased. I'm so confident and proud of you. Now, friends, I want to report on the surprising and generous ways in which God is working in the churches in Macedonia province. Fierce troubles came down on the people of those churches, pushing them to the very limit. The trial exposed their true colors. They were incredibly happy, though desperately poor. The pressure triggered something totally unexpected, an outpouring of pure and generous gifts. I was there and saw it for myself. They gave offerings of whatever they could, far more than they could afford, pleading for the privilege of helping out in the relief of poor Christians. This was totally spontaneous, entirely their own idea, and caught us completely off guard. What explains it was that they had first given themselves unreservedly to God and to us. The other giving simply flowed out of the purposes of God working in their lives. That's what prompted us to ask Titus to bring the relief offering to your attention so that what was so well begun could be finished up. You do so well in so many things. You trust God, you're articulate, you're insightful, you're passionate, you love us. Now, do your best in this too. I'm not trying to order you around against your will. But by bringing in the Macedonians' enthusiasm as a stimulus to your love, I am hoping to bring the best out of you. You are familiar with the generosity of our Master, Jesus Christ. Rich as he was, he gave it all away for us. In one stroke, he became poor and we became rich. So here's what I think. The best thing you can do right now is to finish what you started last year and not let those good intentions grow stale. Your heart's been in the right place all along. You've got what it takes to finish it up. So go for it. Once the commitment is clear, you do what you can, not what you cannot. The heart regulates the hands. This isn't so others can take it easy while you sweat it out. No, you're shoulder to shoulder with them all the way. Your surplus matching their deficit, their surplus matching your deficit. In the end, you come out even, as it is written. Nothing left over to the one with the most, nothing lacking to the one with the least. I thank God for giving Titus the same devoted concern for you that I have. He was most considerate of how we felt, but his eagerness to go to you and help out with this relief offering is his own idea. We're sending a companion along with him, someone very popular in the churches for his preaching of the message. But there's far more to him than popularity. He's rock solid, trustworthy. The churches handpicked him to go with us as we travel about doing this work of sharing God's gifts to honor God as well as we can, taking every precaution against scandal. We don't want anyone suspecting us of taking 1 penny of this money for ourselves. We're being as careful in our reputation with the public as in our reputation with God. That's why we're sending another trusted friend along. He's proved his dependability many times over and carries on as energetically as the day he started. He's heard much about you and liked what he's heard, so much so that he can't wait to get there. I don't need to say anything further about Titus. We've been close associates in this work of serving you for a long time. The brothers who travel with him are delegates from churches, a real credit to Christ. Show them what you're made of. The love I've been talking up in the churches, let them see it for themselves. If I wrote any more on this relief offering for the poor Christians, I'd be repeating myself. I know you're on board and ready to go. I've been bragging about you all through Macedonia province, telling them Achaia province has been ready to go on this since last year. Your enthusiasm by now has spread to most of them. Now, I'm sending the brothers to make sure you're ready, as I said you would be, so my bragging won't turn out to be just so much hot air. If some Macedonians and I happened to drop in on you and found you weren't prepared, we'd all be pretty red-faced, you and us, for acting so sure of ourselves. So, to make sure there will be no slip-up, I've recruited these brothers as an advance team to get you and your promised offering all ready before I get there. I want you to have all the time you need to make this offering in your own way. I don't want anything forced or hurried at the last minute. Remember, a stingy planter gets a stingy crop. A lavish planter gets a lavish crop. I want each of you to take plenty of time to think it over and make up your own mind what you will give. That will protect you against sob stories and arm twisting. God loves it when the giver delights in the giving. God can pour on the blessings in astonishing ways so that you're ready for anything and everything, more than just ready to do what needs to be done. As one psalmist puts it, he throws caution to the winds, giving to the needy in reckless abandon. His right living, right giving ways never run out, never wear out. This most generous God who gives seed to the farmer that becomes bread for your meals is more than extravagant with you. He gives you something you can then give away, which grows into full-formed lives, robust in God, wealthy in every way, so that you can be generous in every way, producing with us great praise to God. Carrying out this social relief work involves far more than helping meet the bare needs of poor Christians. It also produces abundant and bountiful thanksgivings to God. This relief offering is a prod to live at your very best, showing your gratitude to God by being openly obedient to the plain meaning of the message of Christ. You show your gratitude through your generous offerings to your needy brothers and sisters, and really toward everyone. Meanwhile, moved by the extravagance of God in your lives, they'll respond by praying for you in passionate intercession for whatever you need. Thank God for this gift, his gift. No language can praise it enough. And now, a personal but most urgent matter. I write in the gentle but firm spirit of Christ. I hear that I'm being painted as cringing and wishy-washy when I'm with you, but harsh and demanding when at a safe distance writing letters. Please don't force me to take a hard line when I'm present with you. Don't think that I'll hesitate a single minute to stand up to those who say I'm an unprincipled opportunist. Then they'll have to eat their words. The world is unprincipled. It's dog eat dog out there. The world doesn't fight fair. But we don't live or fight our battles that way. Never have and never will. The tools of our trade aren't for marketing or manipulation, but they are for demolishing that entirely massively corrupt culture. We use our powerful God tools for smashing warped philosophies, tearing down barriers erected against the truth of God, fitting every loose thought and emotion and impulse into the structure of life shaped by Christ. Our tools are ready at hand for clearing the ground of every obstruction and building lives of obedience into maturity. You stare and stare at the obvious, but you can't see the forest for the trees. If you're looking for a clear example of someone on Christ's side, why do you so quickly cut me out? Believe this, I am quite sure of my standing with Christ. You may think I overstate the authority he gave me, but I'm not backing off. Every bit of my commitment is for the purpose of building you up, not tearing you down. And what's this talk about me bullying you with my letters? His letters are brawny and potent, but in person he's a weakling and mumbles when he talks. Such talk won't survive scrutiny. What we write when away, we do when present. We are the exact same people, absent or present, in letter or in person. We're not, understand, putting ourselves in a league with those who boast that they're our superiors. We wouldn't dare do that. But in all this comparing and grading and competing, they quite miss the point. We aren't making outrageous claims here. We're sticking to the limits of what God has set for us. But there could be no question that those limits reach to and include you. We're not moving into someone else's territory. We were already there with you, weren't we? We were the first ones to get there with the message of Christ, right? So how can there be any question of overstepping our bounds by writing or visiting you? We're not barging in on the rightful work of others, interfering with their ministries, demanding a place in the sun with them. We're hoping for is that as your lives grow in faith, you'll play a part within our expanding work. And we'll all still be within the limits God sets as we proclaim the message in countries beyond Corinth. But we have no intention of moving in on what others have done and taking credit for it. If you want to claim credit, claim it for God. What you say about yourself means nothing in God's work. It's what God says about you that makes the difference.
Well, I never thought that anybody could accuse Paul of being an opportunist or anything like that. I mean, he does end up getting killed. And
Yeah.
The other thing, I can't remember the term, but when they were talking about the gardeners and who plant a lot of crops, does anybody remember the little phrase they said?
Oh yeah. I think it was in the last chapter, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
it was
Something about
he
A stingy planter gets a stingy crop.
right.
A lavish planter gets a lavish crop. Is that what you meant?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I meant. So I
Yeah.
have a lavish crop of delicate squash plants. Well, I gave 2 away now. I have 6 plants plus 3 other plants. So
Good for you.
I had to bring them to coffee hour and pass them out.
Yeah, really? Yeah.
a little
People
bit
take that
fall
stuff.
when they harvest, but
It's a
Yeah.
really good squash.
funny. That's why I was laughing at that part.
Of course, a stingy.
Anyone who's ever
plant.
planted zucchini would understand.
You can't say that about it. Right. So I guess they were collecting money.
Yes, that was
Yeah.
my impression. Yeah, for Paul and his ministry to carry it out, I think. No,
Yeah. And
yeah.
to give money to poor people.
Yes.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
he was really poor. I mean, because
He was, I think he was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I think he supported himself, didn't he?
yes, well, yes,
Yeah.
made tents or something like that.
Tent
He was a tent maker.
Yeah.
I read about that. The tents he made were like sunshades that you use in markets,
Uh-huh.
so that there was a big market for tents in the ancient world.
Interesting.
Yeah, I'm just beginning to watch the things that you sent. They're interesting, really.
Yeah,
I was surprised at how little I knew about
tents.
Well, it was interesting to see how Corinth has 2 harbors. It's
Yeah.
in this isthmus, and so they had a great, capacity to trade because they had these 2.
It was. I think of it as New York City
The
of the
crossroads.
ancient world
The
in a
crossroads.
way. And I mean, there were other big cities, but Corinth was like a big commercial
Mhm.
city. And so you watched part of that video,
I
huh?
started the video.
Yeah.
Yes, I decided. I just started the first one. I'm going to watch them both, but I didn't have time.
Yeah.
So I will. Yeah, they look really.
That's good. That's good, Becky. I have a feeling or an intuition that it was the nature of Corinth as a big city and a wealthy city that led to their, I guess, willingness to badmouth Paul or challenge him. Because we only have what Paul says, right?
Of course.
Yeah. And
the historical video concentrates on the makeup of the city. It was heavily Roman and Greek.
yeah,
Very well educated, very wealthy people.
yeah.
Yeah, but then I mean, like our society, a big gap, and then very poor people as well.
Lots of poor people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
It
people
was,
without status were treated very poorly. I mean, they
yeah.
don't have any account.
That was probably true in a lot of the
Oh,
Roman,
I
of the ancient world.
Yeah.
You know it. Remember in First Corinthians, Paul talks about how you go to the Eucharist and some people just hog and eat
Right.
their food, and then there's other people
Right.
that get embarrassed because they don't have anything. And I guess that's a, I, I, I guess that's a sign of kind of classism.
Sure.
I think
You know that
yeah.
it's hard to break out of that. You know,
Well,
these
it's
are
interesting
really,
that, I mean, the Christianity appealed to poor people.
mhm.
I mean, the richer people had, well, let's just say it spoke more to poor people, I think,
Yeah.
initially.
But I think, in fact, I remember a book called The First Urban Christians
Yeah,
made the argument that, in fact, Christianity did spread along the trade routes.
Mhm.
So you
Well,
also
yeah.
had networks of people who weren't poor,
Mhm.
who were these urban people who were attuned to, if you think about some of the teachings that, in a way, shatter traditional social structures, call for new kind of horizontal relationships with other,
yes,
for example, that appeals to a particular class, I think, of more mobile,
Mhm.
urban,
yeah,
Yeah.
socially upward moving
Right.
people.
And
Socially
people
mobile people.
Yeah,
who are exposed to ideas from other
yeah,
cultures, so they're
yeah,
yeah.
not
yeah,
so narrow.
You mean like when Paul says there is no free or slave, there is no
right,
Greek
right,
or
right.
Mhm.
or Jew,
Male
there
or
is no
female.
male or female.
Yeah.
That's kind of like that, isn't it?
Yeah, well,
Yes,
that was
right.
a
Yeah,
pretty uh, weird concept for that time.
Mhm.
I would think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. It
Maybe
makes
not
me
weird is shocking.
shocking. It makes me think how biblical religion was really unique in history. You know what? Because let's say in the Bible, in the Old Testament, we see the development of a personal relationship with God, particularly in the Psalms, I think.
Mhm.
And then with Christianity, you see, I don't want to say equity, that's not the word. It's that, and I don't like to use the word equal, but I like to say everyone has the same value.
That's right.
Is
Yeah.
what I
Mhm.
like.
Yeah.
You know
But
what?
I think we exaggerate if we think that's unique to Christianity.
Oh, you do? Oh, tell
Yeah.
me. Yeah,
Well, I mean, I'm so far from this now, but certainly by the 14th century, you had
yeah.
Sufi movements, right? Bhakti, devotional movements in
Okay.
Hinduism and the Sufi movements
Mhm.
throughout the
Yeah,
uh, Perso-Iranian world that
yeah.
created new kinds of horizontal solidarities
Mhm.
that linked people
Uh-huh.
in different ways, I think.
Ah,
But I don't think
interesting.
that 2000 years ago there was that much of it.
No,
Where,
I'm really talking, well, I don't know. I mean,
I mean, it was a very classist society. There were a lot of slaves, and then there were a few people at the top.
um, I don't know. I think there were movements throughout history that really
Mhm.
changed that. Kind of Sufi devotional kinds of movements, certainly
uh-huh.
by the 11th century on in
Okay.
among Muslims that called for different kinds of
Mhm.
horizontal relationship.
Yeah.
Well, even, in Buddhist stuff, which I suppose is about 2000 years ago.
Right.
Muslim thinks that's 1,000 years later.
But
Yeah.
you can't generalize about any of those religions. It's just particular moments in any of those great traditions that
Mhm.
Yeah.
movements.
Yeah.
That's interesting
Yeah.
because
yeah.
I last year I read there's not that really much except for myths of the ancient world. But I read, for example, Gilgamesh.
Mhm.
Oh,
Mhm.
There's a
right.
beautiful new translation of
Mhm.
that by the Danish guy. It's really a kid. And this I know I hate him.
Barbara,
And
do you remember John Harrell reading Gilgamesh to us at St. Mark's, or were you gone at that time?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I
yeah,
do. Yes.
Yeah,
yeah,
it was a, I don't know, I guess, anyway,
Right.
he read
Right.
it in parts to us as part of the church service. It's fascinating.
yeah.
I'd never even
Well,
heard.
I think Gilgamesh has like it talks about all these deep human longings.
Mhm.
It's true. But it doesn't talk about the gods as very nice.
No,
You
no.
know, it's a whole different concept of divinity. So, man, I really recommend this. I really loved this book
Mhm.
by the Danish guy.
Um,
So,
I
the
think
young man whom I hate
Yes.
Okay.
because he's so smart. I'm just kidding.
There's always somebody like that.
Yeah, really.
Another underachiever.
So, so next week we're gonna do 11, 12, and 13, next Wednesday.
Oh, is it 3 more chapters? Oh,
Yeah.
I thought it was
Well,
12.
yes,
Okay.
11, 12,
We'll
13 's
we'll
very
finish
short.
Second Corinthians, which is
Yeah.
I don't know, it's a very troublesome book to me.
Hmm.
I I've got to find the lessons of Corinthians.
Mm.
They're merged into the relationship Paul has with the Corinthians.
Mhm.
Well,
And
I think it's to me, it's really interesting that you go from some very sublime concepts
yeah,
to some language that you would find in a fundraising letter today.
yeah, really. Because that's what he was doing.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what he was doing.
You can see him getting, well, here's the carrot and here's the stick.
Right.
Yeah.
But then, of course,
This is what I want you to say to them, Titus. Yeah.
yeah, and the last chapters look like he's going to detail all the things he suffered.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes him feel guilty.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah. I
So,
think Paul did suffer.
Oh, yes,
A
and he's
lot.
obviously very sensitive about his own reputation. I mean, for
Yes.
good reason, because it's
Yeah.
important, but
also because he started out as a persecutor of the church.
Right.
So
Yeah.
has to be
Right.
doubly
Yes. He's
anyway.
it's one of his best arguments in a way,
in a way.
that he was a persecutor.
The change in his own life.
Yeah.
It's a good
I
reminder.
I
Yeah.
like the part where he says, I don't need anybody to tell me that I'm supposed to be doing this.
Yes, it's
God
true.
tells me.
He does say that.
I have it from the horse's mouth.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
does say that.
Anyway, this is
Great.
really fun to read all this stuff.
No, I think that's
Yeah.
really important. That acute sense he wants to communicate that he's got a direct line,
He
right?
does. He
Yes.
does.
That's
Yes.
a good reminder, Sandy.
And then he says, remember, I was the first one who came to you.
Yeah.
He says, not these other guys. You know what?
Even Peter, is that right?
Yeah, he mentions Peter.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Peter,
I
of course.
assume that's the Apostle Peter, the rock.
Yeah.
Yeah, I assume
Yeah.
so too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, well,
Anyway,
most of this we don't read in the lectionary. That's why it's
No, that's
Oh,
what's
totally. It
one
would
thing I
be
really like about doing this,
Yeah.
is we
Yeah,
get to
right.
see so much that we do not get in the lectionary at all.
I
Yeah.
agree.
And it does, it's
Thanks.
good stuff to know.
Yeah.
It really
Very
is.
good stuff.
it's fascinating.
And there's beautiful things
Yeah. it is.
within it. Yeah. Anyway, I'm so glad you like it. Okay.
All right.
Okay. See you next week.
Thank you,
Okay.
Larry. Thanks.
Thank
Thank you
you.
guys.